You've got credit questions? I've got answers. I'm Gerri Detweiler, and this is Talk Credit Radio. We're live every week and on the web 24/7 at talkcreditradio.com. Get your credit reports ready. Let's get going. Welcome back to Talk Credit Radio. I'm Gerri Detweiler. Well, if you've ever tried to build credit from scratch, or maybe if you've been through a difficult period, you know, it can take a while. It can be very frustrating. All those bills you pay all the time, your insurance, your rent, your utilities, your cell phone, guess what? They don't really help your credit rating. Well, there's a new service that aims to help folks establish a credit rating more effectively and with the kinds of payments we pay all the time. And joining me to tell us about it is Steve Ely. He was with Equifax for a number of years, and he is now with a company called eCredable, and they're using alternative to credit to help consumers give a better picture of their financial lives to potential creditors. Steve, tell us first of all why the current traditional credit system can be so frustrating for building credit from the scratch.
Well, you know, building credit just takes time, and I think a lot of people think that they can, just get started within a few months. They're going to have a really good credit history and a credit file that they can get a great credit score with, and then go get, wonderful financial terms. And that's really just not the case. You know, it typically is going to take a year to two before you can create any kind of solid credit history that's going to give you access to what's called prime credit rates. And as a consumer, you want to have the best credit score possible, because obviously that's going to give you access to better financial terms, and you're going to pay less for the financing of the car, the home, the student loan, the credit card balance that you might have to carry, whatever the case might be. And so that's kind of top of mind with everybody, but it just takes time to do, and that can be very frustrating for a lot of people.
And a lot of the things the bills that we pay every month, Steve, don't appear on traditional credit reports. Give us some examples of how that works.
Well, it's kind of interesting. If you're a person with a credit history, let's say you've got credit cards and cars and mortgages and whatnot, about 80% of the bills you pay every month don't get reported to the three national credit bureaus. So that's things like utilities, cell phone payments, insurance premiums, child care, anything you might be paying on a regular basis that just doesn't get reported to the credit bureaus. And so the problem with that is that means those are payments that you might be doing really well at, but you're not going to get any credit for that. And so that's just the way the system works. What we're trying to do at eCredible is to basically give you credit for those payments. We work with consumers to say, for us to understand who are you paying your bills to, we get that information verified. We put it into a credit report, because we are a credit reporting agency, which empowers you as a consumer to go use that when you apply for credit.
So explain to me how this works. I'm sitting here, I'm someone who is renting a place, I have a cell phone, I'm making my car insurance payments every month. How does that turn into a potential credit rating for me?
Yeah, so let me just walk through the process real quickly. It won't take very long. What happens is we ask the customer to come to our website and enroll in eCredible. They do that, and they tell us the bills that they're actually currently paying. So they enter in the name of the landlord and the utility company and the phone company and the insurance company and things like that. We need to know things like what's the due date, what's the amount you pay, when was the last time you paid that. And we use that information to create a baseline of what your current credit rating looks like from an alternative credit perspective. And we rate people on a scale of A through F. We think that most consumers can relate to A to F much easier than they can relate to a 740 or some other credit score that's just kind of difficult to comprehend. And so once we rate you, let's say you start out as a C. You come in and you have been paying your bills on time, and maybe you just don't have a long credit history. You've only been doing it for 6, 9, 12 months or whatever. Clearly you'd want to become an A. And so what our AMP credit rating allows us to do is to help you understand where you are, and you get to use it to determine how long will it take you and what do you need to do to achieve your goals. And let's say you want to become an A. It will tell you very specifically, based upon your circumstances, that it's going to take you 3, 6, 9, 12 months, whatever the case might be, before you earn your A. Now, once you've earned your A, that's the time to get access to your credit report. Let's say you want to go buy a car or something like that. Then you give us permission to act as your agent and get this information verified on your behalf. That's exactly what we do. We put it into a credit report. Then we put your final credit rating on it, and now you can take that rating and that credit report and take it to any potential creditor to demonstrate just how creditworthy you really are.
I'm talking with Steve Ely. The website is eCredible.com, and we'll also link to that at TalkCreditRadio.com. So, Steve, one of the questions I've gotten many times over the years is, why can't I have my rent or my utility or my cell phone bills reported to the major credit reporting agencies? People will say, well, can't I just ask them to report that information?
Yeah, they don't want to do that because the way that whole system is set up. You kind of need to understand why credit bureaus exist. They really exist to help other businesses make decisions about you as a consumer. They don't really exist to help a consumer drive it the other way around, which is what Ecredible is doing. And in our model, the consumer is in total control of driving the entire process. They pick the bills they do want to have reported on. They pick the bills they want included in their credit report. They are responsible for sharing it with whomever they want to share it with. We don't allow anybody to come to us and say, I want to see Jerry's credit report. That's just not, we don't allow that. Mm-hmm. You determine who gets to see your credit report. So, to really answer your question more directly, though, what happens is most people don't want to report to the credit bureaus because if you agree to report to the credit bureaus, you have to honor all the rules of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And there's some fairly onerous business requirements there that are hard for a lot of businesses to live up to. Things like, if you report to the credit bureaus, you have to deal with consumer disputes, meaning that if you're reporting somebody's rental history and it shows up in a credit report and there's something wrong with it, you need to have a process in place that allows the consumer to say, you know what, I don't agree with that, and I need to get that corrected. Well, frankly, most landlords just don't want to deal with that. They don't want anything to do with that. Same thing with utility companies and cell phone companies. They just don't want to deal with consumers calling them and saying, hey, you messed up my bill payment history, and now it's affected my credit rating, and now I'm not getting a car, or I can't get the home I was planning on buying. All those kinds of things that, as consumers, we get pretty upset about when somebody's messed around with our credit. And so that's really the challenge with the system, is getting those people to report that information that really, frankly, don't want to.
And that's a fundamental difference between what you're trying to do and what exists right now. I don't think most people realize that maybe they do, but the credit reports are really not set up for the consumer. They're set up for the lenders, who are the main customers of the credit reporting agencies.
They are. When you think about it, consumers really only got easy access to their credit reports with the Internet. If you kind of think back to the year 2000 when online bill pay started to become fairly popular, the credit bureaus at the very same time said, hey, why don't we, instead of mailing reports to consumers, let them come to our website and get them? And that's a very efficient and cost-effective way to get that information out there. But credit bureaus don't exist to serve consumers. They exist to serve businesses, and they do it very, very efficiently. That's the way their model is set up. And serving consumers, while some of them do it better than others, it's not their primary business.
So, Steve, once someone has started to supply information to eCredible and build their credit history, what happens then if they actually want to get a loan? Who's going to use this information?
So there's a little-known law in the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. If you talk to anybody that deals with credit, they know all about the Equal Credit Opportunity Act because they're required to by law. And there's a clause in there that most consumers have never heard of, which gives you the right that any time you apply for credit, you have the right to present anything that demonstrates your credit worthiness, and that creditor is required by law to consider that information. They're not required to change their underwriting policies. You don't get to say, just because I presented my credit report, you have to give me a loan, any more than they have to give you a loan if you have a great FICO score. But nonetheless, this is an opportunity that most consumers just don't know about, and it's a right that you have that is protected by the law, and we're simply trying to educate consumers about it and let them know they can use it to their advantage.
Well, I want you to know I did write about that in my first book, The Ultimate Credit Handbook in 1993. But I didn't know that your service was going to be coming along 15 years later to make it easier for people to do that, because right now, what do? Pull out a shoebox and your checking statements. It's kind of hard to prove that. So this is all in one place then. And do consumers subscribe to this service?
They do. The way that a consumer pays for it is they come to our website and become a member. and they pay. There's a couple different ways they can pay. We charge $9.95 a month to be a member. We give them a discount if they want to prepay for 3 months and also for 6 months. Some people will be with us for a long time because they're just getting started on building their credit, so they could be with us for a year or even 2. But some people are only going to be with us for a month because they're going to show up and you know what? They have a good credit history. They just have no way to prove it. Well, now they can come to Ecredible, sign up and be a member and prove that they have a good credit history. We also charge them to verify each account in their file, because this process is a manual process. We literally have to call the landlord, we call the utility company, we call the insurance company, and we get 2 years of your payment history to go into your credit report. That's really critical because that potential creditor is going to want to see that kind of information, that kind of depth when it comes to understanding, are you going to be a good bill-paying customer? So that's the way the process works. It's very simple to use. Anyone that's accustomed to using any kind of online financial service, it will not be foreign to them. And we've tried to make it really rich with educational content. One of our mission goals is to try to help consumers truly understand how to be really financially responsible. We want to teach people that credit is not bad. It can be bad if you abuse it, though. And so we try to teach people to use credit wisely. And if you can do that, we think that you can stay out of trouble.
I'm talking with Steve Ely. The website is eCredible.com. It's a website to help consumers establish good credit with the payments they make all the time. Steve, we're going to go to a break, but after we come back, I want to talk to you about some of the things that folks need to know if they're establishing credit for the first time, and they want to make sure that they do it right so they don't end up in any of the traps that sometimes can derail your credit for a good long time. And I also want to talk a little bit about the traditional credit reporting business, because you have a lot of experience there. So stay with me. We're going to talk more about building credit in the next segment. And I also want to make sure that everyone who is aware that if you received a check this week in the mail or recently, or maybe it's coming up next week, you receive a check from something called the CCF settlement. It'll say CCF settlement on it. It is not a scam. Over 10 million of these checks are going out, and they are a refund from some class action litigation that actually started in 2006 and was semi-resolved in 2008. And the typical person is going to receive a check for $18.04. Not a lot of money, but, hey, you don't want to throw it away. You don't want to throw away almost $20. And some folks who actually filed claims are going to receive as many as a few $100s, depending on the foreign transaction fees that they paid when they either traveled overseas or bought things from companies that were based overseas. So if you get one of those checks, you're not sure about it, you can feel safe to cash it. The website is ccfsettlement.com. The one thing I don't want you to do is don't respond to an email or a phone call that says they can help you process your foreign transaction fee settlement payment. You will not get an email. No one's going to ask you for personal information. No one's going to call you on the phone. You're either going to get this check in the mail or you're not going to get it. But don't let it be an opportunity for you to get scammed and end up with a situation where you end up paying them money. If you have questions for us at Talk Credit Radio, we're always happy to answer them. You can visit us on our Facebook page, Talk Credit Radio, or you can come to TalkCreditRadio.com and leave a question 24/7. If I use it on the air, I'll send you a copy of one of my books. Stay with me. I'm Gerri Detweiler. Talk Credit Radio is brought to you by ArcLoan.com, home of the automatic rate cut loan and ArcLoan mortgage management program. Since 1993, ArcLoan has educated thousands of consumers across the U.S. on mortgage strategies and programs that help increase savings and reduce debt. Their mortgage management strategies have been endorsed by national consumer advocates, financial planners, accountants, insurance professionals, and most importantly, homeowners like you. Talk to the mortgage educators at ArcLoan.com and find out how you can take advantage of historically low mortgage rates with no points, no closing costs, no kidding. Visit ArcLoan.com. That's ARCLOAN.com. And by Ceci Debt Solutions. Over the years, I've heard from countless people who are struggling with high credit card debt or mortgages they can no longer afford. They're looking for reliable help from an organization that cares. That's why I'm proud to recommend Ceci Debt Solutions. They've helped thousands of people nationwide become debt-free, and they'd like to help you. They offer credit counseling and housing counseling nationwide. Call 866-484-5373 or visit them online at endyourdebt.org for a free consultation with one of their certified financial counselors. Again, that's endyourdebt.org. Welcome back to Talk Credit Radio. I'm Gerri Detweiler, and joining me today by phone is Steve Ely. He is with Ecredible.com. It's a bureau that's helping consumers to establish credit using payments they make all the time, every single month. Steve, so you were talking about how your clients start establishing a credit rating by supplying information about the bills they pay to eCredible, and those can later be verified when a report is requested. Let me play devil's advocate here now. Wouldn't someone just give you the good stuff and not the bad stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly why we created something called the AMP credit rating. AMP stands for All My Payments. And what the AMP credit rating does, it works very much like a typical credit score, like a FICO score, whereas we take into account all the history that the consumer has, and then we rate them based upon that. The way that the model works is that we group things into three different categories. The most valuable payments are going to be things like rent and utilities. The second most valuable are things like insurance payments. And the third most valuable payments are things like child care and health club memberships and things of that nature. And then what we do is we apply some key rating factors to that. And the most important ones are things like payment history. Payment history is, do you pay your bills on time? That's the most important thing you can do in establishing a really good credit history. The second one is, what types of accounts are you paying on? If you have things like rent utilities, that's really good. If all your payments are things just like the low value items like a child care or alimony or something like that, that doesn't count as much in our model. The third is the age of the credit history. If you only have 3 months of credit history, that doesn't count very much. But if you have 2 years, that counts quite a bit. So anyway, we take all that payment history, the 2 years of history, we run it through our model, we put a rating on you from A through F, and it's a little difficult to get an A. And that allows the creditor to say, hey, if this person shows up with a AMP credit report with an AMP credit rating of an A, I know that that information has been verified and that they've been paying their bills on time for a long time.
So, Steve, if someone were to come to you today after they hear about eCredible, would they be able to supply information about payments they've been making for 2 years, or would it have to start today?
Well, we actually look at 2 years in the past. And so the consumer doesn't actually supply us with the payment information itself. They enter that into our system, but we do the verification. Because if the consumer were to self-report that information, the creditor probably wouldn't accept it. And so since we're a credit reporting agency, we can get that information verified on behalf of the consumer, put it in the credit report so that when the potential creditor sees it, they'll know that this is good and useful information.
Okay, so potentially it could get someone off to a really good start if they've been paying their bills on time up till now.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I talk to a lot of people about it, and they go, well, guys, I'm just getting started, and it's going to take me a long time to do this. And then I say, well, how long have you been on your own and paying your own bills? Well, for 3 or 4 years. Well, you've already got a history. If you've been paying your bills on time for the last few years, that's what we really care about, and we'll be able to help you prove that you're creditworthy so that you can go to apply for credit.
Who is the prime target for this kind of service that you're offering?
So it's really going to be younger people more often than not, people that are just getting started building a credit history. We're trying to help these people get across that bridge to get access to mainstream financial products. And today it's just very difficult to get across that bridge. It feels like, there's a moat surrounding all those wonderful, affordable financial products. And we just want to help them, get over that and get access to those products. That's going to be the typical customer that we see, an 18 to 25-year-old. We're also going to see a lot of immigrants that come to our system because they've come to our country, and even though they may have had credit where they came from, they're new in the United States and have no way of demonstrating that they actually pay their bills on time. So that's somebody that we can help quite a bit. We talk to a lot of people in the military. Because they tend to be younger, which fits our profile, and they also tend to be fairly mobile. So for them, they do need an online service. They can have easy access no matter where they are around the world.
Yes, Steven, who runs our boards, is nodding his head, and he's from the he was an Air Force veteran, so he knows exactly what you're talking about there. And you ring a bell with talking about young people. You know, it was extremely easy a few years ago. If you were even headed for college, you'd be getting credit card offers the moment you turned 18, maybe even before that. But now with the Card Act, it is more difficult to get that first reference. And I remember when I established my first credit reference, it wasn't easy to get that first credit card. Everybody wanted to see a credit history before they take their chance on giving me the first credit card.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way that the U.S. credit system works. You know, you have to have credit to get credit, so it's kind of a catch-22, which really frustrates people. And yeah, that's really just another good benefit that Ecredible brings to the marketplace. You know, we can help people prove they're creditworthy so they can go get that first credit card or car or move into a nicer apartment or whatever it is they're trying to do, and they just can't prove they're creditworthy.
Yeah, Steve. So what happens when someone is ready, say, to buy a house? Is this information useful in that kind of big transaction?
Believe it or not, our very first partner that we've done business with is a company called Churchill Mortgage. They're based in Nashville, Tennessee. And Churchill will absolutely work with you to have alternative credit information, which is the kind of information we're talking about here, have it verified by eCredible. And if you have an A or a B, you can go to Churchill Mortgage and apply for a home loan, and they will absolutely work with you to get you qualified for a home loan. Now, naturally, you need to have all the other things in line too, you know, like income. They're still going to check your FICO score. You can't have a lot of collections and stuff like that in there. But if for some reason, let's say that you've been living debt-free for the last 5 years. You know, a lot of people have been working really hard just to get completely out of debt, which is a very a noble thing to do. The challenge with that is that if you try to live debt-free, guess what happens to your credit score? It just goes down, down, down. And so now, let's say you've been living debt-free and now you've saved up money and you want to go buy a home, and you certainly don't have enough to pay cash for it. You're going to have to finance a significant portion of it. Well, Churchill Mortgage can work with you to help get you into that home.
I can see how that'd be very attractive to a lot of people who have sworn off using a lot of credit because of maybe they've been in problems or they just don't want to get into problems. Does this service help someone who has been through financial difficulties and now needs to rebuild their credit?
Well, it does in the sense of we can help complement your existing FICO score. You know, we are not in the credit repair business. We don't do credit counseling. But if you were going to go talk to a credit counselor or you're just figuring this out for yourself and trying to get back on a good, solid path towards rebuilding your credit, let's say you had a FICO score, maybe you used to have a 780 and now you have like a 640 because you lost your job and you missed a few payments here and there. Well, the beauty of eCredible is that since we're dealing with all this other payment information that's not part of your traditional credit file, this can be viewed by the creditor to complement your traditional credit, and it should absolutely help them view you in a different light.
Well, speaking of the complementary aspect of this, Steve, there have been some various attempts by some of the major traditional credit reporting agencies, and I know I've seen information come out of FICO about credit scores that are meant to address folks with what they call thin files in the industry, people who don't have many traditional established credit references. How is this different or similar to what they're doing at the bureaus and at FICO?
It's similar in the sense of they are using some similar information to help create that credit score. It uses alternative information, things like rent, things like utilities, if they can get a hold of it. But it also includes things that are, for some people, they're glad that they're not reported, things like payday loans, things that maybe late utility payments where you've just decided that you only have so much money to spend and you're going to pay off credit card debts before you pay your electrical bill or whatever. Now that kind of information is going to show up in those kind of reports, and unfortunately for consumers, you have no control over that whatsoever. That is totally driven by whoever you're applying to credit for. That's their choice to go and get that kind of information and use it in their underwriting practices. Now with Ecredible, it's the exact opposite. The consumer drives our process 100%. They're in total control. They tell us exactly which accounts they want to have verified, which accounts are going to be included in the credit report. Now, they do need to have, as I said earlier, a substantial history of paying bills on time. Otherwise, they can't earn an A or a B, and it's very likely that the creditor is going to want you to have an A or a B.
I like what you're doing, Steve, and I like the fact that it's focused on the consumer, and I also like the fact that you came out of the industry, so you have a lot of traditional, contacts in the industry that hopefully will make this successful, because frankly, it's an industry that, it's about time for a little bit of a little bit of competition and shake up here, and it's time for consumers to feel, I think, to feel some sense of control, because it can be frustrating with traditional credit reporting, that sense of, I really don't feel like I have a whole lot of control beyond the obvious, which is, of course, to pay your bills on time and try to keep your debt low. Is there anything else you want to make sure my listeners know about?
Well, Gerri, one of the things that you talk about is, consumers being accountable for themselves and standing up for themselves and taking charge, so they make sure that they are in control of their finances. That's what we believe in too, and we think that eCredible can help consumers do that. Take the bull by the horns. Go get this information, use it, because it can help you prove you're creditworthy and help you get better financial terms.
Steve, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you, Gerri. I appreciate it.
I've been talking with Steve Ely. His website is eCredible, eCredable.com. I'll also link to that at talkcreditradio.com. And if you know someone who needs to get started building credit, maybe wants to buy a house, take advantage of low interest rates, he's got some great information there. Well, coming up, I'm going to answer a question. Can credit card companies put a lien on my house for charge-offs? I love to answer credit questions, so make sure you share your credit questions at talkcreditradio.com. If I use them on the air, I'll send you a copy of one of my books. I'm Gerri Detweiler. Stay with me. You've been listening to Talk Credit Radio. Missed a show? Just visit talkcreditradio.com to download it, or search the iTunes store for Talk Credit Radio for our podcasts. They're free. I'm Gerri Detweiler. Thanks for joining me.